Thank you. I fell off my bicycle, and so I don't have much of a right hand right now, although it's coming back really quickly. So if every so often you see me wince, it's nothing personal. Okay? It's just that I forget about it and I use it in the wrong way and it hurts. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about meditation, what I call meditation as a relationship. That what we're doing is not really, it's not merely that we're going deeper inside ourselves as we're expanding from ourselves into a greater reality. I talked about that some last week with superconsciousness and so on. So the most powerful way that we affirm that when we're starting in our meditation is that it's very helpful to start your meditation with a prayer. In the context of this temple, we pray to these masters, but in as much as you all are just beginning, I won't impose that on you. But let us, so we'll start with a prayer, then we'll settle ourselves in and I'll guide you a little bit. Then Sai Ganesh is going to play a chant for us on the harmonium. Sai Ganesh, do something really simple like listen, 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 or do my heart is good. And what we'll do when we're doing the chanting is there's a certain vibration that music has, and the words also have a positive affirmation. So what we're doing is we're trying to take all that scattered energy that I talked about last week and using both the power of prayer and the power of music to bring us in to a singular focus, so that when we then start concentrating at the spiritual eye and watching the breath, we'll already be moving in the right direction. Okay, so we'll just start now and we'll just go through a whole meditation practice. So, first just find your center by just breathing in a very relaxed and easy way. And just become conscious of your breath, if necessary. As I said last week, put your hands on your diaphragm or your ribs. Breathe somewhat deliberately. Trying to find an even rhythm. Now we want the attention to be at the point between the eyebrows, with the eyes slightly above the horizon line, so that we're looking out, as I was saying last week, from sitting at the medulla, out through the spiritual eye, lifting the eyes slightly above the horizon line, but very expansively. Feel like you're being literally pulled outward and upward. Feel the light, whatever image works in front of you. You may see something that looks like the spiritual eye, which is on the altar behind us. Now, concentrating and offering our energy into that light. Please pray responsively with me. Heavenly Father, you should repeat the words out loud. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Great Masters, Divine Spirit within me, humbly we bow at your feet. Guide our meditation, that we may feel within ourselves the eternal presence of unconditional love and infinite joy. Om. Peace. Amen. Now again, find the breath. Just relax. We're not doing the Hong Sa yet, but we're just getting ourselves centered into the center of ourselves. Now Sai Ganesh will lead us in this chant. Most of the words in this chant repeat. So even though there's quite a few of them, You can do it responsively. If you're comfortable singing aloud, please do, or at least repeat it mentally. Concentrate deeply both on the melody and on the words. Feel as much as possible that your own vibration aligns with the vibration of the words, aligns with the vibration of the music. Sai Ganesh, I'd rather you, can you do listen, listen, listen? Do you know how to do it? Or do you need to do? No? Then do Door of My Heart. Okay. Now, just to review very simply, what we're going to do now is we're going to watch the breath. Eyes lifted just above the horizon line. Closed eyes, looking outward into the infinite. Bring to your meditation practice a feeling of great peace, expansiveness, joyful self-offering. Feel that you are released from all the confining small identities, bringing your attention to the spiritual eye, to the center of the body. Now we want to become conscious of the breath. As I said, put your hands on your rib cage or your stomach if you need to, so you can feel the breath. Feel it going in at the nostrils and then goes right up the nostrils into the spiritual eye. Right at the point between the eyebrows is when the air actually enters the body. As the breath naturally flows in, you want to chant the first half of the mantra, Hong, only mentally, and let the length of the Hong mantra essentially follow the inhalation, but make no effort to control it. Just breathe very naturally and mentally chant Hong as the breath flows in. And then as the breath naturally flows out, chant the second half of the mantra, Sa. Hong, Sa. The meaning of those two syllables vibrationally, I am one with the infinite. I, as the energy flows in, one with the infinite spirit. As you exhale, you're offering yourself into that infinite light. If your mind wanders and you realize you don't know where the breath is and your mind is filled with other things than the mantra, simply find the breath and begin again. So as you're comfortable, as you find the breath, let's now practice together for a few minutes. while still keeping a meditative focus. The end of meditation is a very good time to do an affirmation. So we have an affirmation here on the subject of happiness. So either mentally or out loud, repeat the words of this affirmation after me. I vow from today onwards to be happy under every circumstance. I came from God's joy. I am joy. I vow from today onwards to be happy under every circumstance. I came from God's joy. I am joy. I vow from today onwards to be happy under every circumstance. I came from God's joy. I am joy. At the end of meditation is also a very good time to send energy and prayers to those that you would like to help. So keeping your eyes still uplifted above the horizon line, in the expansive light that you see with closed eyes, visualize someone or a circumstance to which you would like to send healing energy. Perhaps a loved one or a conflict you're having somewhere. And feel as if the calmness and the focus of your meditation is now permeating that person. Don't pray so much for a result, but rather try to share the vibrations of calm, uplifted meditation. I come from God's joy. I am joy. Feel yourself simply to be a conduit from superconsciousness through you to project that positive reality toward one you may know is in need of healing energy. Now repeat after me, Divine Mother, Thou art omnipresent. Thou art in these souls. Manifest Thy healing presence in their bodies, minds, and spirits. Now rubbing your hands together to generate a positive flow of energy, and then using your hands as a sending station, still concentrating at the point between the eyebrows, visualizing the person to whom you would like to send positive energy. We'll chant Om 3 times and feel the energy passing through your hands now, through the ether, to touch that person's spirit. Again, don't visualize a result, but rather feel that you are filling that person with divine energy, and then their own superconsciousness will use that energy for their highest good. Om. 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 Shanti, Shanti. Okay. Now, there's many other things I have to say about meditation, but let me first ask you, have you practiced this week? Do you have questions? Did you have experiences that need clarified?
Just struggling with when I close my eyes, I see these flashes of light.
Mm-hmm.
That distracts me. So I guess I started wearing that.
It's all right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I think I'm struggling with when I close my eyes, I see a lot of flash of light,
Right.
and that kind of distracts me when I'm trying to concentrate on my third eye.
Right.
Um, Recently, I think 2 days back, I started wearing an eye patch.
Oh, an eye patch is a very good idea. Does it
Yeah,
help?
it does, but
Yeah.
I mean, when a strand of light comes and it kind of distracts you, so
Right.
it takes your mind off that meditation. So, how do I really focus when in that kind of scenario?
Um, it's good to take your glasses off because your glasses pull your energy outward. But if you're wearing an eye patch, you wouldn't be wearing glasses. That wouldn't matter so much. Don't worry about the microphone. Just put it down. Your eyes, the flashing of light is either the actual moving of your eyeballs because your concentration is, because your mind is restless, your eyes are restless. And there's absolutely nothing that can be done about it because it's just what's happening for you right now. So for you to consider it even as a bad thing, it just is what it is. Um, if you were learning to play the piano, you wouldn't be able to play very well because you wouldn't have trained your habits yet. So when you're learning to meditate, you haven't yet trained your habits. So all of the whatever the ambient condition is just going to start expressing itself. So for you, meditation is being distracted by lots of flashing lights, and you have to really change your own inner thought about that. That this is not because you're doing something wrong or it's not going right. It's because that's the way you're constituted right now. And when you bring your energy inward, you simply unveil what you are. And you're probably a person who uses their mind a lot, and you have a lot of thoughts all the time. So when you suddenly try to put your concentration on one point, it's just not going to go there immediately. However, wearing a sleep mask and earplugs are both very, very helpful things to do because it does exactly what you're saying. Get a really good sleep mask that really closes off all light, and I think it would help to that extent. But then also, I mean, this class and in other classes, there's things you can do to prepare yourself for meditation. And if you keep going with our meditation classes, the energization exercises, which you'll learn next, I would teach you some of them, but I can't use my arm today, so I'll have to just teach you next week. They help to concentrate your energy before you start meditating. Also, chanting helps, or mantra helps, or reading something that is spiritually focused, so that you're normally all over the place like this, so you bring yourself in by degrees. The energization exercises really harmonize the body and get it focused. Then if you listen to chanting or recite chants or mantras yourself, pray, and then begin to focus, you'll at least have worked your way down from just coming from work and sitting down. Put on your eye patch and, as I'll talk in a few minutes, have as much ritual, and I don't mean complicated ritual, but as much ritual around your meditation as you can get, which is to say, you sit in the same place, you have a blanket that you wear, you have cushions that you use, you have an altar in front of you, so that there's just many things that are helping you to know that I'm not just taking a 5-minute break from my job, I'm actually doing something else. Yeah.
I think the other thing is
Uh-huh.
when you wake up, and I think you recommended it last session, ideally you should do it in the morning and in the night. So morning around what time? Is it like you wake up, have a cup of tea and then work on it, or it's just you wake up and then you
Well,
meditate?
I have a friend who opens her eyes and falls into her meditation chair. I can't do that. So I think it's a personal matter. If you can wake up fast enough and have no intervening external activity to go right into meditation, that's really terrific. But if you really just go into subconsciousness because you just aren't awake enough, you have to do what you have to do. I usually do the energization exercises between waking up and meditating because it just really perks me up. Many people drink tea or coffee, although some of my friends have told me they had long habits of doing that. When they finally stopped doing it, they found that their meditation was much calmer. So it just depends on many things. Yeah. But the point is, as I drew up last week, because of that connection between superconsciousness and conscious, the closer you are to that receptivity of not being connected to the world, the easier it is to meditate. You know, if you don't check your emails before you meditate, if you don't go online to see anything, but just leave all that aside. And also the long-lasting transforming effect of meditation is when that superconscious begins to influence the subconscious. So that's one of the reasons why you want to meditate just before you go to sleep if you can, and as close to when you wake up as you can, because then the subconscious is more receptive, and you want to reprogram the subconscious to have a superconscious orientation. Because the subconscious is just a collection of your past experiences. So if you can insert into the subconscious superconscious experiences, the whole level of your impressions will begin to elevate. So that's the other reason why it's very positive to do that. Okay? Yeah. Any other questions? Or Nicholas, did you have anything that you'd like to ask about? Or?
I guess that's not your question, but I found it difficult.
I found it difficult to.
Difficult to meditate in my house.
In your house?
Yeah, it's just it seems more ideal here, with the
Yes, of course.
the different surroundings, acoustics, just more comfortable, softer. In a home, that's where there's everything happens, calamity and this and that. So it's hard to separate.
Do you live alone? Do you have a roommate?
No, I live with my uncle.
Pardon me?
I live with my uncle.
Your uncle? Is the house your house or is it his house?
It's his house.
Do you have much private space in it, or anything that you can really define on your own?
I mean, I have a bedroom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I completely understand. Places have atmospheres. There's no question about it. And where do you live? What city?
Mountain View.
Because we have a meditation temple in our community, the door of which is always open. And you can come over there to meditate, early in the morning or late at night if you want to. It's in Mountain View. And you should find out where it is. This is not always open, but the meditation temple in our community is always open. We have group meditations over there, 6:30 to 7:30 usually. It varies a little bit, but you can come for the scheduled group meditation, or you can come in and out on your own, and it has a very strong atmosphere. As soon as you get comfortable with the fact that you really can do that, that will really help you. What you need to do in your house, and these are some of the things that I didn't get to say last week, which, because places do have atmosphere, and they assume the vibrations of what happens in them, and also because we have habits, that we associate certain activities with certain places, it's extremely helpful to use all those things to the benefit of your meditation. So it's very beneficial to set up a very specific place where you meditate. Right now, I live in a big house, but a lot of the house, and other people use the house, even though I'm the only permanent resident, but I have constant guests, and the house is used in different ways. So I essentially live in one room. And I have laid out a little wool rug, and I've made a little altar on the wall, and I have my little meditation blanket, and the thing is about as big as this table and chair together. It's just nothing. It's just in the corner. But it's completely laid out for meditation, and it's useless for anything else. So when I first was learning to meditate, I lived in a studio apartment in San Francisco, and I didn't even have a bed. I just had a mat on the floor, and it had been tucked in the corner, and I pulled it out a few feet, and then made another little meditation square between the mat and the wall, and then I would make a habit of getting up on the other side, so that I never really went into that little spot unless I was going to sit down to meditate. And the mind is quite easily tricked, and it really becomes where you want to be. If possible, it's nice to face east when you meditate because they're subtle forces. It's very good to have something that's wool or silk that you can use as a meditation. You can, buy something fancy or not, but, just what I happen to have, this old rug, and it just sits out on the floor like that, and I have a meditation bench. These are all accoutrements, and I'll talk to you about the benches in just a minute. Harder to do with one hand. Ow. And then the bench is just here, and so every time I want to meditate, here I am. I mean, that's all that I have. But I never actually assume this position unless I'm going to meditate. And right in front of me on the wall, because I'm devoted to these masters, I have pictures of the masters, and I have taken certain vows, and I have those words on the wall in front of me. I also have a collection of crystals that represent the different chakras, which is just what I happen to have. I have a few other little things right around me so that whenever I sit down I'm reminded, including I have a bracelet that was made for me by a very dear spiritual friend, and just the memory of her, the reminder of her is inspiring to me. It's very personal. So then I have this much space and a wall in front of me. But this is my meditation area, and this is what I always use, depending on how elaborate a person you are. When I was in San Francisco, I was much simpler even than this. The wool and silk have an insulating quality against the vibrations of the earth. So these are traditions that are helpful. It's also helpful if it's at all cold where you are. This is not a very big shawl, but to have some kind of a blanket that you can wrap yourself in. And this it's not just for warmth. It just gives you that further sense that I've entered another world. So you might not, I'm kind of a ceremonial person by nature. I'm a priest and I like these sorts of things. But quite apart from that, you'd be surprised how much all of this begins to affect you. That if you're just helping yourself to know that I'm really doing something here. And if your mind begins to wander and you have inspiring things in front of you that you can look at or hold in your hand, metals or holy metals, holy pictures, holy words. And I look at the vows that I've taken, and they're very uplifting, and they help me remember. I have a few spiritual books to the side, and all of that. And you see how simple? You don't have to. You can buy gorgeous fabrics, gorgeous shawls, or you can take an old silk scarf that you might have around or something and put it under you. Or if you're not, these meditation benches are particularly good because you don't have to be able to twist your legs up. You can try it, and you can just sit like this. And I used one of these for 10 or 15 years, maybe longer. Then I shifted over to a folding pillow, and then just in the last year my knee just gave out on me. So now I'm back to one of these. And you can sit for a very long time, or just use a chair. Nobody cares. It's just, you just really want to be comfortable doing it. If you use a chair, you can also... I'm such an old person today. I've aged about 10 years just because my arm hurts. You can also use a chair like this, a chair in this way. And this way you can insulate yourself in the same manner. And if you don't, as I say, if you don't want to buy a shawl, you can just go to a fabric store or a scarf store like this. And then all of this, you will be amazed and how much all this makes a difference. And what you're also doing is you're saying to yourself, I'm serious about this. This is really something that I do now. Now, I completely understand, especially if you're living in someone else's house, because I travel a lot, and I know you can't quite get a grip on the vibrations. But if you make yourself a little kit, one of my friends lived with her own family, but her family was not congenial. So she couldn't, but she had a little box with all her little things in it. Whenever she would meditate, she would open her little box and pull her little things out, and it captured her imagination. And it's very important to come back to places where the vibration is already strong. Because otherwise, you just try on your own and nothing happens and you begin to think it doesn't work. So even ideally you have your daily practice of your own, but you can become a regular meditator by regularly joining other people who meditate. And then maybe you only meditate a few times a week or even once a week, but still you do it because you've come to a room like this. In fact, I usually talk about this more the last week, but one of the reasons people stop meditating is because they stop feeding their meditation practice. You've got to feed it with energy from people who have more strength than you. Either by coming to our community for our group meditations, coming here for Sunday or Sunday mornings and Friday night kirtan and so on. Does that help to answer that? Yeah. And regularity is extremely helpful if you can train yourself to meditate, if your schedule allows, and you can train yourself to meditate regularly at the same time every day, then it just gets to be like an appetite. You don't go out before you brush your teeth. You don't feel good if you haven't, fixed your hair or taken a shower, whatever it might be. And you begin to just not feel quite normal unless you've at least put a few minutes of meditation in. I always encourage people, it's very good to meditate longer, but it's very good to meditate short than not to meditate at all. And what I've found beneficial in my life, because I tend to be I'm not very systematic. I tend to be rather impulsive and I like to change everything. But when I have my little meditation spot, even if I think I only have 5 minutes, if I go all the way to it and sit down, even if I just spend a few minutes there, for one thing, once I'm settled, I tend to spend longer. But even if I just spend a few minutes there, I've kept that circuit somehow. I've kept the circuit, I think, with a greater reality, with my own superconscious. And I've just kept the circuit within myself, that this is something that I do. This is where I put myself in. You see, what happens when you start meditating is you're actually cooperating with this greater flow of energy. There is this power beyond ourselves that is always trying to, there is our higher self, which is always trying to get through to the insulated little self that we have. So as soon as we put out any effort at all to crack the shell, it's like we live in a submarine with all this energy, all this force trying to break through the little shell of ourselves. And if we can just even get a little crack, you'll find that a lot starts coming in. You get a bigger return on your effort than common sense would tell you that you would. And even if your meditation itself, even if it is not as deep or as amazing as you think it ought to be, the mere fact that you've begun to try just reorients you in time and space. So don't worry about the details at the moment. Just try to make something happen for yourself. There are a tremendous number of recordings, both online and in our boutique here, of people chanting and singing. And you should use as many allowable cheats as you can, and not just think that you have to be in absolute silence. Do as much as you need to get yourself oriented toward it. I know that if you go on different of the websites, you find lots of things, and we have different CDs here and so on. I'm a little not quite up on all the resources, but I know they're out there and easy to find. Does that help? Okay. Olga, what about you? Do you have any questions or thoughts?
I would say I like to meditate at home better in a bigger, I would say, when many people.
You prefer, say it again.
With many people,
You
more people, yeah.
You like to meditate with more people.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, I
Oh.
can't explain. Even sometimes it becomes noisy, but still I like to in a bigger.
Do you like to meditate where other people are meditating, or just any?
No, actually, I can follow meditation when it's chanting very easily. That's probably I don't have to, I guess, pay attention to my stomach hungry or something.
Right.
Because it's a lot of in the body.
Yes, it's true.
Or leg fall asleep if you're in a lotus pose,
Yeah.
Those kind of the physical
Yeah.
gives a distraction.
The physical body is a terrible distraction when you meditate, and
Yeah.
it's always distracting us, but see, when we're not meditating, we just keep dealing with it, and we just keep doing whatever we need to do, and so we don't know, or we pick up a glass of water, or, we're just doing it. It's distracting us continuously, but we're responding to it, so we have no idea that it's distracting us. We just think it's life. But it's only when Swami used to say, put a rock in the river, that you suddenly notice all the currents that are sweeping all around you. Because if you're just rolling with the river, you don't know. So yeah, and if we're with a group, it offers you an automatic discipline, which is helpful to everybody. Plus, if you're with other people whose minds are vibrating the way you want to vibrate, naturally that helps you a lot. And group meditation is one of the most powerful reasons why we come together as community. So it's definitely worth doing, and consider it to be a positive virtue. But there's another level too, where gradually one needs to become self-motivated. But it doesn't matter, just meditate, and then gradually you can become self-motivated.
Yeah, joy is self-motivation.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you
The
speak.
joy is self-motivation,
Yes.
I would say. Yeah, that's what I was missing in the past. Joy.
Well, our way of meditating is, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Joy is a very fundamental
It's
part
different.
of it.
So I had experience before with different yoga paths, and I think I was missing this part.
Yes, joy is a very
Joy.
fundamental part of Ananda means joy. So yes, you've definitely come to the right place. I started out looking for joy first and then found the spiritual path as the place where I was going to find it. But my motivation was not the spiritual path. It was just I really wanted to be happy, and I couldn't figure out how that was going to come about. And then I discovered that the secret was within me, and then everything else followed after that. But the first impulse was just an inner compelling need to find a way to be happy. I was just I must have had a lot of miserable incarnations, because I was really keen on not having one. I was keen on having a good one. So it's funny, isn't it?
I mean, I understand the secret is within you, but we need tools and guidance.
We absolutely need tools and guidance, because there's a lot of other things within us too. That's the difficulty with the idea of simply thinking that we can go within. Last week when I was talking about the subconscious, every single experience you've ever had in all your incarnations, that's what I was going to say, I was going to talk about the chakras. Every single experience you had in all your incarnations is within you. And those are the impressions that have brought you to this point. So merely when you go within, you will not automatically find anything that you really want to keep re-experiencing, because we've also had countless other kinds of experiences, and they're all hovering there too. So that's why you have to know, when you get to that junction point where superconscious, subconscious, and conscious all meet, you have to know what to do. And this is where chanting, prayer, sufficient ritual in what you're doing, energy, which is where energization comes in next, concentration at the point between the eyebrows, holding the eyes above the horizon line, chanting, mantra, right bhav. Bhav is like having the right mood when you meditate. All of that is what takes you to that junction point and lifts you up instead of taking you down. Good company, being with other people who are doing exactly the same thing, riding that wave.
I noticed when I concentrate myself in the third eye, it's really painful physically.
You're probably... it's very tricky.
No, I'm not doing like that.
No, I understand that.
it's
But seriously, we associate energy with tension, usually physical. We're used to putting out physical or mental energy, and we associate both of them with tension. And so we tend to think when we start concentrating, we have to concentrate hard.
No, I don't do this. No.
You're not squinching your face, but if it's painful to you, then the the vibration of your concentration is, you're creating tension in it, I presume. Are you creating tension? Are you fully relaxed when you're concentrating?
I'm relaxed, but attention is here.
Right.
But then, after a while, now I have a headache, by the way. So after
Okay, because your idea of how to concentrate involves physical tension.
Mhm.
Otherwise, there would not be that. In fact, see, the whole thing about meditation is that we are separating ourselves from awareness of the physical body. So insofar as we're holding tension in the physical body, to that extent we're tying ourselves to it. So we're in a state of tension, and this is a little hard to grasp, but we're in a state of tension all the time because we are infinite in our nature, and the stream, the river is trying to get back to the ocean. And so there's a drive within us to expand to infinity. And then there is an ego identification that is trying to hold us to limitation. And it actually takes, even though it seems counterintuitive, it takes a tremendous amount of tension to hold our consciousness down to the ego. And so what we're actually doing when we're meditating is we're letting go of the need to constantly be identified and taking care of this limited self, which includes breathing and heartbeat, which is why when you get deep enough into it, you don't even breathe and your heart doesn't beat, because you don't need to keep it going in a physical way anymore. So if you're finding that you're getting a headache, it's because your whole concept of how to concentrate is oriented in the wrong direction. This is why I tried to talk about, and you need to think about this as particularly, and there's lots of different images that we can think of. I traveled in Hawaii a few different times in my life, and I remember standing on cliffs on the Kona coast and looking out over the ocean and being conscious of the fact that it was an island, and so we were just way out in the middle of the sea out there. And then this incredible sunset coming, and all of the waves, and because we were a little bit higher up, it just literally went out to infinity. And so what I felt within myself, which I was unable to satisfy, is I just wanted to be part of it all. But I keep that image in mind. So when I'm meditating, what I want to feel is that there's this enormous light within myself, just beaming out. You can think of it just like your heart, your happiness, I keep wanting to gesture with this arm, but when I do, it doesn't feel very good. Just like you're loving everything and everyone, and just spreading that light out. It's far from trying to concentrate it. You're doing just the opposite. You're just letting it go. And that's really the kind of concentration we're talking about, where everything else, we just let go of everything else and just allow this to flow. Now, devotion is a very helpful thing like that. If you really love someone, do you have children? No, I don't have children either, but I'm children. Pardon me?
I have 2 cats.
You have
They're
2 cats?
adorable.
Okay. Think of anyone or anything in your life, seriously, that you effortlessly love. Every mother or father tells me how effortlessly they love their children and how completely. Even if you don't have children in this life, you've had lots of children in many incarnations, and you can imagine
That's
it.
why I don't have children.
It's me too, okay? You and me both. Okay, I know what it's about. I don't need to do it. But the aspect of it that's positive is just how freely and openly you would love. Maybe you have somebody in your life, a relative or a friend, that you just have that kind of effortless love for. You don't have to try. So when you don't have to meet this person that you adore and love them, right? It's just comical, isn't it? So when you're meditating, you're in relationship with something that you're just so spontaneously wanting to be part of, that it takes effort to hold it back. rather than effort to give it out. Does that make sense
Yeah,
to you?
makes sense.
And you can see how it's the opposite of creating a tension headache. It's like, oh, finally, I don't have to protect myself. I don't have to look good in this circumstance. I don't have to meet any standard. I can just love and be loved, or joy and feel joy. I can just let go. That the thing is that you let go with high energy, in the same way that if there's someone in your life that you completely adore, you give tremendous energy to that. But it's just effortless energy. Okay? It's a very important distinction. And these are where what they call the manifestations of God come in. I'll go to that in just a minute. Vincent, do you have any questions? I know you're a little bit behind the 8 ball here, but okay. Okay.
I've been practicing beforehand a little bit, so
Okay.
this is flipping in.
Okay, good. Nicholas or Akshay, do you have anything else to say before we go on from this? Do we need a break, or can we just go forward? Okay, are you all right? Yeah. Let me I mentioned the chakras, and I mentioned the 8 manifestations, and I want to cover both of them just a little bit tonight. Much more than we may think about it, everything about this world is vibrations. When they're talking in scientific terms, people talk about this a lot. We have certain, you would call it levels of consciousness, way we think. You can be depressed, you can be happy, you can be very alert, you can be sort of sound asleep, you can be disappointed, just all these different ways that energy flows through us, and then we have different experiences. In the tradition of Sanatana Dharma, which is what this is called, we talk about it as being from India, but it's really this word Sanatana Dharma. There's no English equivalent. It means eternal truth, that which is. And Sanatana Dharma is really the everlasting truth behind all spirituality in the world, and religion comes afterwards. Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, they all have aspects of Sanatana Dharma. But religion is just like one piece of it. Sanatana Dharma is actually the way we're made, which is why once you get behind all the differences, all true religions have the same principles if they're all related to Sanatana Dharma. And one of the principles that comes out of Sanatana Dharma is this idea that wow, that's a mess, is this idea that the infinite spirit manifests in, yeah, that was awful, in 8 basic ways. See if I can do this. And it helps us a lot when we're learning to meditate to understand what these basic vibrations are. Because these are the powers that we're really trying to tune into. Wisdom, light. Thank you. I think we tried to be too efficient and got the thing all wet. Okay. When we're trying to meditate, what we're really trying to experience is we're trying to experience the everlasting vibrations of our own higher nature. And these are actually they're incredibly useful in countless other areas of our lives, because people wanting to be a part of higher consciousness, be a channel for higher consciousness, even a channel for God. But what the heck does that really mean? People get really strange when they start trying to do this. But what you're really trying to be is you're trying to be an expression of the ways in which higher consciousness manifests in this world, and they're all very different. peace and calmness is like a too good example to sort of talk about it. You can be very calm, for example, in the middle of a war zone. Oftentimes a hero or a great leader in battle, people will be screaming and dying, and bullets will be around, and all these terrible things are happening. But the person you can still remain calm in the middle of anything that happens. Now, peace is quite different. Peace is when there's a cessation of activity, when there's nothing more going on, and you come to just a place of complete rest, but high energy. Peace is not the same as sleep. Calmness can be in the midst of any kind of activity. In some situations, love is really just the quality that's just needed. People are all at odds with each other. Maybe it's a very difficult, and you don't feel at all happy to be there. And maybe you're in a hospital where people are very sick, and it's just not a joyful atmosphere. But you can offer love in such an atmosphere. Or maybe you're really in the eye of a storm, and you're the one who has to make it work. And everybody around you is totally freaked out. And you don't really feel much love for anyone. But you can have calmness. Or there's a complex situation that has to be worked out. And wisdom is really the quality that is needed. You might not even be able to be very loving in such a moment, or maybe not peaceful. But you can be wise. You can stop and just think what really needs to happen here. These energy, sometimes it's described as power, but I find energy as a more helpful, accessible way of thinking of it. Sometimes in a situation, the absolute only thing to do is to do something. Just put out energy. Just start cleaning the house. I've been in circumstances where just everything was kind of going to pieces, but you just put out some kind of energy. You just start washing the dishes. You start, doing the laundry. You start making the beds. You just start putting out energy in a positive way, and then you can gradually pull the whole situation in a new direction. Maybe there's been a catastrophe, and the whole house is blown down or burned down, and there's no joy, there's no love, there's no wisdom you can bring to it, but you can just bring energy to it. Let's start cleaning up the mess. And you start cleaning up the mess, and then everything begins to move in a more positive direction. Light is both the vision of light that you see and the quality of lightness. Often in a circumstance, if you're just having a good time, you'll find that a lot of people can just enjoy it. I remember Swamiji, he actually commended me because it was a random photograph. In 1976, which was now a very long time ago, when I lived up in the mountains, the first Ananda community, the whole community burned down. We just had a wonderful Shiva experience, and the whole place burned down. We only had like 20 houses, but they all burned. And the next couple of days, we just had to get out there and start cleaning it up. And there's just a photograph that somebody took of me, and I'm wearing this my bumblebee shirt. It had these big stripes, and it came down to about here. And I'm just there, and I've got these big gloves and all this. And I just, somebody took my picture. There's this great big beaming smile on my face. I'm just filthy, and we're in the middle of this. Our whole place is just burned down. And Swamiji always would talk about that picture and put it on a book cover at one point. But I think what I was feeling was just the quality of light. This is such a mess. It's just an awful mess. We just have to bring light into it. What else can we do? The recent election in America, we just have to bring light into it. What else can we do at this point? It is what it is. I don't know what else to bring, but you can bring a little light. Sound is music. Sound is Om. Sound is your own voice. Have you ever been in a situation where the sound of your voice was going to be the key factor? And whether your voice sounded like this or like this, or whether it was calm and really offered people something that was really going to help them. Now, when you sit to meditate, bringing this back to meditation, this has many, many, many applications. I mean, I'll just finish because I love this. In my life, whenever I don't know what to do, especially when I'm confronted with a situation that's overwhelming to me, which happens to me fairly regularly, I don't know if it happens to you, and I don't know what to do, I go back to here. And I think to myself, of the 8 manifestations of the divine, which one do I have access to? That's the first question. Because it's not just a question of what the situation needs, it's what do I have access to? And I almost always have access to energy myself. So that's why I say things like washing the dishes. And I've been in many circumstances where I really didn't know what to do, but I could just look around and said, where can I put energy? Maybe nobody wants to talk to me. Maybe people don't want to hear what I have to say. I'm not feeling very calm, so I can't really sit there, but I can put out energy. And I cook, and so I often will take over the kitchen at that point. I'll make soup. I often think in the 3 days between the time Jesus was crucified till he resurrected, I'm sure that Martha was in there making soup. She said, this is a terrible tragedy, but everybody needs to eat. So she starts putting out energy. And I've often, on more than one occasion, just made food, because it's the only way I can think of to bring something into it. Now, when we sit to meditate, see, part of what we have to do, and this is, Akshay, you're talking about various aspects of this. I mean, only because you mentioned moving light and so on. We have to bring into our meditation a consciousness of what it is we hope to experience. We can't be passive in our meditation. We can't just sit down and wait for something to happen to us. We have to meditate with the vibration that we hope to find in meditation. Now, when we were talking about, I was talking about love, because love is an enormously magnetic field to bring into meditation. And our meditation is actually a relationship. And see, what you're doing when you're meditating, when you bring these forces in, and this is why it's powerful to really tie it to the 8 manifestations of the Spirit, is because, see, sometimes when people teach you to meditate, they teach you to visualize something that isn't really there. I talked about this a little last week. I'm walking on a beach and the unicorn comes and there's a princess on the back of the unicorn and she pulls me up on the back of the unicorn with her. And I mean, and it can be very relaxing, but it's not really there. You're just bringing it out of your subconscious mind. When you meditate with the attitude of the 8 manifestations of Spirit, you are tuning into a reality that is there and that is bigger and stronger than the one that you're used to affirming. So when I say to you, think about how freely you can give your heart to someone that you already love, and you can find a memory of what that feels like. And then when you sit to meditate and you're looking up into the spiritual eye and you're doing the Hong Sau mantra, I am one with the infinite, this is not a dry experience. You're bringing to that elation that you would feel if someone that you profoundly love is right in front of you. And what happens is you discover that someone you profoundly love is right in front of you. You just haven't been paying attention until now. Or joy, which is also an easier one. You use your imagination first to remember what it feels like to be very free. Maybe it's a childhood memory, maybe it's maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's just a place that you particularly love, maybe it's all just a visualization. But when you sit to meditate, offer into the upward movement of your eyes toward the spiritual eye, offer yourself with that vibration, because you see what will happen is there will be a vibration that will meet you. And so you will suddenly discover, and you don't really know who or where or what, but you discover that just as the breath is a circular flow, then you suddenly feel that this vibration is a circular flow. That you're not really creating it, you're simply realizing it. But if you don't attune yourself to it, it'll pass you right by. If you're just sitting there waiting for something to happen, why isn't something happening? It's all around you, but you're not vibing with it. You're not looking in the right place. Does that make sense? There was a story told, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's apocryphal. It's a little far out, but it's fun. There was a man who lived in our community for a time who seemed to have a capacity to relate to the astral world, to the spirit world, as well as to the physical world. And he was also a person who could help people in the spirit world who'd gotten sort of trapped, half in the spirit world, half in the physical world. And this is all strange enough, but this man was a professor at Santa Clara University. He was not a slouching sort. He wasn't a weak-minded soul. And so I believe he really could do all of this. And sometimes he would become aware, or somebody else would feel, that there were spirits trapped somewhere, haunting places. And so he offered the service, which he would often do. He'd come to the apartments where we lived in our community, and he would help clear it out. Now, I have no idea how this works. I do not understand why a spirit would be in my kitchen or something like that. But he came to clear out my apartment. And this is where it gets apocryphal, whether it's true or not. And there was a particular room in the house that didn't, I'm kind of sensitive that way. I don't have what he had. But it didn't feel quite right to me. So this is the story he told me. He said there was an American Indian in his spirit form, and he was there. I don't know why he would be there, but he was there. Maybe it had been a battlefield. And his whole tribe had been wiped out. It had been one of those terrible final battles, and his daughter had been killed. And as a father, he was so distressed because his daughter had been killed and he hadn't been able to protect her, that when he died, he just went into a state of total depression. He just died so defeated and depressed that all these, how many centuries later, he was still there and he was still depressed because there's no time on the other side in the same way. So my friend saw him there, and then he said, right above him was his daughter, also in her spirit body, trying to get his attention and tell him that it was all fine. That, they had all died, but they were all going on and it was fine. And he had been looking down and she had been trying to get his attention all this time. So my friend was able to get the Indian to look up. And as soon as he looked up and realized that, first of all, she wasn't even dead, but she was right there, that everything between them still existed, and that he went on in the way he was supposed to go on. Now, I love that story because it's just so completely beyond my ability to confirm or deny it. But what I love about it is that Indian, if he was really there, let's assume he was, had created a vibration completely by himself that he was living in. And there was a total alternative around him, but he hadn't been willing to relate to it. And so as soon as he could relate to it, then it was able to move him. So what's happening with all of us, so much more than we realize, is that we're constantly, and this is where the subconscious mind comes in, we're constantly relating to the same vibration that we always have. And merely by lifting our attention higher and bringing to it, even whether it's because we've been listening to songs, or we've been chanting, or we've been reciting one of these affirmations, or saying a prayer, just even as an experiment, what would happen if I put my vibration somewhere else? And this is what happens when you become even slightly serious about meditation, understanding it in this way. And this is what you were saying about not all meditation systems are joyful, but ours is based on these principles, where you have these 8 wonderful qualities that inherently will lift your energy. And everybody has different personalities. Somebody asked me once of the 8 manifestations, which are my personal favorites. And I decided that I like joy and I like wisdom. That's where I move a lot. And I also like energy. It's not that I object to the others, but the ones I have the most access to. And so we have to think for ourselves, many people just really long for peace. Others are very highly motivated by love. It's just the way they are. the thought of love is what really moves them in their lives. I mean, who doesn't care about love? But joy is my more natural, where I've always been. Does that make sense? Comments or questions about any of that? Okay. I'm going to do a very, very little bit about the chakras, and then we'll send you off. I'll do more about the chakras next week. Well, we've managed completely to ruin this board, haven't we? Well, there you have it. I don't know what happened here. God almighty, that's a mess. Okay. The chakras are the energy centers which are related to the body. There's my person. Okay? And the chakras run really from the crown and the spiritual eye right down the center of the body. And there are 5 chakras here, at the base of the spine, where the sexual organs are, at the navel, at the heart, and at the throat. Okay? This is earth. This can go on forever, but I'm not going to do the whole class tonight. Fire, air, and this is called ether. Ether is not like the gas that puts you to sleep, but ether is like the substance in space. And then the medulla, and then the spiritual eye. The medulla and the spiritual eye are the two poles of the same chakra. This is where the ego identification is. This is where spirit identification is. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th chakra we don't deal with that much for reasons I can explain. Whenever you do anything in your life, these chakras represent a spectrum. Now, whenever I talk about the chakras, I have to make this point clear. All the chakras are good. Every chakra is a good chakra. The question is whether the energy leaks out on its own level, or whether the energy circulates through and is expressed in a more elevated way. And it ranges, the spectrum of what the chakras represent is the spiritual eye is exactly what it says. It's looking at the world with the eyes of spirit. And so if you look at this world from a spiritual perspective, it looks a certain way, doesn't it? The earth chakra represents looking at the world from an entirely material perspective. If we look at the world with the eyes of spirit, we see the necessity for, and we actually see love, kindness, peace, wisdom, light, sound, joy. When we look at the world from an entirely material perspective, we see egos clashing against egos. We see there being an insufficient number of resources. We see people behaving in greedy and hurtful ways. I feel separate, small, vulnerable, injured. Right now my poor little tiny arm is just suffering because I'm looking at the world in a material way. So every time we make any decision, any reaction, any response to anything that happens, we are affirming some level of reality from an absolute material perspective on life to seeing life from the eyes of the spirit. If somebody insults you and you think, you're not very good yourself anyway, are you? And instead of thinking, oh, this poor soul, he must be so unhappy to be so unkind to me. How can I help him? We think, how can I get revenge? Right? Because from the earth chakra perspective, you're separate than me. And if you hurt me, I'll just kick you back. From the eyes of the spirit, we're all children of the same one Father. And if I hurt you, it's the same as hurting myself. We're all one interrelated reality. And so who am I? Who am I personally? Where does my happiness come from? What causes me suffering? We answer these questions all the time. What is lastingly real? What reality am I going to embrace? And every single time you have a response to life, take an action, have a thought or a feeling, you're affirming something between on this spectrum. And the chakras in between all represent degrees of greater freedom. Water is more flexible than earth. Fire can transmute even material things. I talked about our community burning down. That was impressive. All this material stuff just went away. Incredible. Fire had this incredible transmuting power. We thought that the earth was fixed, but fire proved us that it wasn't. Air is yet freer, ether is yet freer. And each of these chakras, chakra means wheel, and it actually is a whirling field of energy. And when energy is in a whirl like that, it's a whirlpool, and it has a magnetic attracting force, doesn't it? Where I lived up in the mountains, we were near the Yuba River, and we'd swim in the Yuba River, and you just see these whirlpools would get started. The river was strong, but the water would just get sucked into these whirlpools, and the poor water just could not get to the ocean because it had to spend all its time going in a circle like this. So when we get ideas, we become very attached. I have to have a baby or else I'm never going to be happy, and I have to have a son because if I don't have a son, the family line won't go on, and then all of this stuff spins, and we worry and we worry and we worry about it. I have to be thin, and I have to be young, and I have to be beautiful because if I'm not, no one's ever going to love me. I have to be a great musician. If I'm not a great musician, whatever it might be, we get these points, and they're not all gross. But there's some point at the center. I have to protect my image under all circumstances. I just don't know. Or the center point can be, I really want to be a loving friend. I want to be God's instrument in this world. And so these whirling energies get started in the chakras. And every time we do anything, we add energy at whatever level we're behaving. And then what happens is our energy actually flows in through the medulla, and it circulates through the chakras, and ideally then it circulates back up, and it acts. Most people run from the ego, but if you're more elevated, you'll run a little more from the spiritual eye. But if all of these chakras are just filled with pre-commitments, then very little energy is actually freed, even to be directed by the ego, what to speak of being directed by the spirit. So, the ego might decide it really wants to be successful, but it's so busy being afraid of this and wanting this and taking care of this and worrying and feeling sad about this, that even though the ego has made a decision, all this energy is just drained out and stored in these chakras, and the ego can hardly get off the ground. And through all our incarnations, all of these impressions build up because this is not a physical thing. So when the physical body dies, this is the blueprint. This is the energy pattern. In the movies now, you know how the actor just gets up and walks off, but is still essentially the same one? That's actually very true. Because who you are, what you look like, what you're dealing with, what your freedoms, what your bondages are, what your fears, what your triumphs, mine, all of ours, it's all this energy pattern. Because if you looked at Earth, all those different things and the vibrations they represent, we are just, each of those chakras is a whirling field of energy that draws to us even our physical body and then all the characteristics of it. So when we start trying to meditate to come here, we try to put our attention there. And what happens is that all of these vortices of energy compete for our attention. I mean, it didn't happen in this class, but I taught a class once in which everybody took turns telling me what happened to them when they meditated. It just started, and it was a perfect illustration. One person felt, as soon as they tried to meditate, they started feeling very, very angry. Another one started feeling just filled with lust. Another one just thought about food, nothing but food. A third of them just really wanted to go to sleep. Another just started crying, didn't even know why they were crying. And it wasn't really that meditation was causing any of that, but as soon as they tried to pull the energy to the spiritual eye, then all the other chakras started competing for it. And if they weren't being distracted, you just began to find out where's the dominant field within you. And that's, meditation doesn't create any of it, but it makes you aware of it. And that's why I say to you, it doesn't really matter what happens when you meditate. You're just finding out where you're standing. Whatever it is, that's where you're actually standing. You just didn't know it. And by the same token, as you start putting energy into the spiritual eye, it gradually starts, because this is an energy relationship. So if you start putting energy here, every little whirlpool of energy that's lighter and smaller than the energy you're putting up here, think of it like a river. If the flow of the river, how much the whirlpool can take depends on the relationship between the flow and the whirlpool. And when you're putting energy here, you're increasing the flow of the river. You're opening the floodgates at the top, so to speak. So the river starts running faster, the whirlpools start getting eaten. And they're just water. I mean, they're the same substance. They're just energy. So that's why, even if you try to meditate, you'll find it begins to shift your life completely, and you don't even know why. But what happens is it starts shifting these vortices of energy in the chakras, and this is karma. It starts dissolving your karma, and your karma literally starts changing because you've affected it metaphysically. And people will say, after they've been meditating for a while, coming here, they'll say, I just don't respond to life, and such and so happened, and I would have done this, but now I do that. And you don't even know when it happened. But what happened is that all of that, all the chakras began to shift. So that when things began to happen to you, you had a wholly different energy pattern there. You didn't even notice. So the only way not to meditate well is not to meditate. Because if you're trying at all, you're shifting the pattern. Does that make sense? We can talk about this a little more. Do you get the basic picture? Any questions or comments or thoughts? All right, I have a lot of classes on the chakras on my YouTube channel. You can find it at Asha Joy if you're interested in this subject, and also the 8 manifestations of God. Asha Joy. And that's my website, and it takes you to the YouTube channel and so on. And I talk about the chakras at great length in there because everybody's interested in them. All right. Is there anything else we need to do before we call it a night? Okay, that's it. You can go home.